Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile video, and in this one, we're going to talk about Spectres. Again. Mainly because of the reintroduction of the Crucible Spectre Forged Frostbearers that got me super excited. Like, super excited. Couple of things to note about these, and, moving forward with the builds that we have, is that they are fantastic. Like, I don't even know how else to express myself. They are so cool, and they allow us to do some really crazy shit. So why haven't I posted a pure Spectre build? I'm going to talk about that in this video. Before so, I want to point out that if you find yourself enjoying this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more content, because we're less than 8, I think it's like 8,000 subs left to get 100,000. So I appreciate it if you did that, if you find yourself enjoying the video. Let's crack into it. First off, in the descriptions down below, you'll find a link to the written guide hub, which is what we're looking at right here. You'll find all my build guides. You'll find some old build guides as well as guides covering crafting, profit making, and Atlas farming guides, and in-depth animate gardening information. And in here, you'll find the Spectre listed at a B- tier. Why? I do not recommend playing this unless you really like playing it. You can do all the 4 void stones, but anything other than that is going to be a bit of a struggle. You'll have to invest a lot of currency. It could serve as a nice template should you choose to do something else with it, but this is what we got for you right now. Again, not something I would recommend. In the actual build guide, we have a bit of a disclaimer talking about this build in general and showing you the pros and cons of this, and I would not recommend playing it as an endgame build. That should be your min-maxing project, but it is a very fun build to play. So the build guide covers all the details, just as always, where we cover through gear progression, ascendancies, PUBs, a skill tree, and everything you'll need, and the front page is where you get your PUBs from. So instead of wasting your time going through something you can read yourself, I'm going to dive in and explain why the hell I don't have a beard right now and I look like a goddamn thumb. I mean, look at this. It's the same picture. It's called a sub goal. And apparently I'm about to wax my leg. Or one of them. Anyways. Here's the PUB for low budget. As you can see, we're doing about 2.7 million DPS with this. It's kind of squishy. That's because this is still not using Wraithlord. It's a very cheap approach. Running a Roomies, Unending Hunger, Bones of Ore, Jinx Juju. It's not even oiled at this point. We've been doing everything we can to keep the budget down. So what we would do with this in general is to oil in Deflection. What Deflection is doing is allowing you to be generating endurance charges when you block, which we're going to have about the cap on. So that's basically how we're going to approach the oiling for this and generating endurance charges that way. We are going to want to have instant leech. It's a very effective way to sustain your HP with builds like this. It does cost a bit of investment though. This is 3 points just to route 3 wasted leech nodes just to get that mastery that we want, which means that this investment here is 7 points to get that leech, but it is well worth it in my opinion. But most importantly, I want to talk about the skill setup, and that is in the Forged Frostbearers. You can see that we have a count of 16 and only having 4 Spectres. Now, the reason for this is very simple. They shoot mortars. Mortars can collateral shotgun splash effect onto the same target, which means that you'll have to multiply with the amount of projectiles you're running. That means 4 projectiles for this guy, and each Spectre will then hit with 4 projectiles per cast. That means each Spectre in the enabled count here for included full DPS should be multiplied by 4. That's why we have 16 with 4 Spectres, 20 with 5. So this is basically the low budget. I'm not going to waste too much time going in because it's not supposed to be a build guide video. You can check out the build guide if you want to, but we've kept the budget down drastically. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the medium budget version. And this is as far as I brought this build before I said, you know what, this is what we're going to show the community, and we're going to move on from there. In here, we have Death Attunement Oil for the Spectre, and instead of generating endurance charge with Enduring Composure, this is a very common setup. As you can see now, our investment for the leech is actually quite a lot more. I didn't find a good way to enable this because endurance charges are so insanely strong in the current state of the game that you don't want to run without them. The problem with this build, in my opinion, is the lack of defensive layers. Now, we was able to bring this build up to the point of having 17,000 max fizz hit. It is a little bit more, but even realistically, this is what you're looking at. So the problem with Wraithlord in general, which the medium budget build is running, is first off, you're losing 4 sockets in your gear. And many builds are regularly or normally socket starved. The other problem is that we cannot use other non-Spectre minions. That means that for us to get the Feeding Frenzy, we're going to run a Transient Spectre. The video and the build guide will cover how this is done, but basically you're able to summon a few more Spectres with this version of the gem as another link in which we run Feeding Frenzy and a Guardian Blessing. So just don't oversummon them. Just something to think about. But we lose Animate Guardian. We lose Meat Shield minions like zombies. We lose the Golem buff. So there's so many things that we lose out on at the same time as we're just focusing on a massive army of Spectres. Now, obviously, this is really cool to do. Because in this point, we're sitting on 5 Spectres with the additional approach of the body armor. So we have a level 25 plus gem. That means 3 Spectres, 4 from this, and another 5th one coming from the body armor modifier. And then we get an additional 4 from the actual helmet. That puts us at 9 Spectres. And that's pretty cool because 9 Spectres means that you're hitting for 36 hits, which is absolutely insane. So that's basically how this build is played, and running up with a really large army of these cool guys. It looks fantastic. It is very fun to play. The problem, again, is that the DPS is sitting on 6.6 million. Granted, this build is actually very cheap to get going, but you are going to want to run spell suppression through a Green Nightmare. My problem, again, like I mentioned, was that bringing the build up to anything higher than this, to me, was actually something that I wasn't very happy with the results of. I'd be happy to see PUBs that you guys might have made, and if so, post them in the comments down below. Because the only way I found to make this feel really good was to actually include the remaining minions. But at that point, why not just play a Zoomancer? It's the same problem we have with Golem builds or Zombie builds. Why play them when you could just play Zoomancer, which is outperforming everything? There's the cold version that I have. There's the poison version that Helmbreaker's made. When he's making that written guide over at Meixsell. Do check that out, by the way. It's a great build for damn sure. Both versions are insane. Why play any of those other builds when you can play Zoomancer? So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Zoomancer and explain a couple of TLDRs on it as to why I'm not running Forged Frostbearers for the actual approach of the medium and high budget. And that is very simply because I believe that the other Spectres we have access to are currently better than the ones we have, than the Forged Frostbearers. So the problem in general is that you could run Forged Frostbearers at a full glory setup in the actual Zoomancer build, but what I chose to do was to focus on the defensive gains, such as a Perfect Guardian Turtle, to ramp up the defensive layers. So let me show you how the Zoomancer build on a high-budget version would look. We're actually running in the Spectres here. We have a Forest Warrior, a Guardian Turtle, and a Forest Tiger, and an Arena Master. So these are for buffing the rest of our minions, and our damage is coming from our zombies and our skeletons. That's how the Zoomancer is played, and it utilizes these buffs on top of, obviously, the Explosion AG. Now, for those of you who missed this or haven't read the actual guide, which you obviously should be doing, the way the Zoomancer plays is that you would actually use Forged Frostbearers in a low budget because the lack of clear speed has been a big problem when it comes to the Zoomancer build in general. So you want to run 3 Forged Frostbearers for this build. If you get a 4th Spectre and you feel like defenses isn't an issue, you add a 4th Forged Frostbearer. If you don't feel comfortable with the defenses, you have 2 choices. Either start looking into the medium budget tree, which is actually much more defensively focused, or you just add a Guardian Turtle as that 4th Spectre to ramp up your defenses. The transition from changing away from Forged Frostbearer has to do with the actual style of the Explosion AG. Explosion AG is done through having, you don't need the curse, but you're doing it with a Crusader modified, or Crusader influenced body armor with the Explosion mod, together with a pair of Gravebind gloves. This allows that kills that happens that is within the range of the Gravebind wearing Animate Guardian to actually explode. Once you have that, you no longer need the Forged Frostbearer because their main purpose was to give you that clear speed. And this is something I feel was better when for the higher endgame content and to buff the remaining minions this way. That's why I'm rather running an Explodey AG, as I call it. So once you do that, you'll actually move away from the Forged Frostbearers. So what's the TLDR then on the Spectres? I think Forged Frostbearers are fantastic. You could run them in the Zoomancer if you want to. You are going to have a somewhat of an impact on your defensive layers and will want to look into scaling that because the Guardian Turtle provides you with a Determination aura. I guess you could theoretically add something like a Guardian's Blessing support and run the Animate Guardian together with a Mask of the Stitch Demon as an idea, just a spitball. So Mask of the Stitch Demon makes it so that the Animate Guardian has no energy shield, but regens a ton of its HP based on its energy shield. And thanks to the Bone Barrier node, which is this one, they get 40% of their life as extra energy shield. This allows it to sustain this very well. The problem, though, is you need to support them an Animate Guardian with Guardian's Blessing and an aura. In this case, a damage aura or, hatred, whatever you want to run with. Problem is, you are no longer able to run the Hungry Loop. So now you have the problem of socketing this. Where will this fit? I have no idea how you're going to solve that problem. This is why I've decided not to go down that route. And this is a result of Divine Blessing not being in the game that kind of limits us on some of these departments. But I wanted to make this video to talk about it. A lot of people have been asking for it. So yes, indeed, the Pure Spectre build guide is posted. It is updated. It is not recommended to be played. It is more there for the people that really want it. I love playing it. I might dabble with it later in the league myself. I think it's a fantastic build. Just haven't found a way where the defensive layers and the damages numbers are good enough for me to feel hyped about playing it. And the Forged Frostbearers are fabulous. They're fantastic. You can level with them in the campaign. You can play with them in the low budget. And you can choose to run them in the high budget or medium budget Zoomancer builds as well if you want to. I just chosen to prefer the AEG setup myself. That's about it with this video, but do let me know if you have any thoughts, any ideas down in the comments. And again, we're very close to 100,000 subscribers. So if you find yourself enjoying the video, hit the like button, subscribe for more content. Until next time, as always, stay safe and keep rocking.